Today we are going to do something a little different, and we're going to do a little interview. And we're going to be interviewing someone that I think many of you know. And if not, you're going to get to know him a little bit more today. If you think you know him, you might learn something about him today as well. So I'm going to ask JR to come up. If you could just welcome JR for me. And this is, I'll be honest with you folks, we met, JR and I met this week to go over this interview, but I decided to do something that's slightly scary. I decided we're not going to map this out. And open mic as a youth pastor scares me to death. Right? If you've ever been to a camp where they're like, does anyone have anything to share? And then there's a long line of teenagers. As a youth pastor, I used to sit there and go, oh, no. Here we go. But I'm trusting you, JR. But first of all, introduce yourself and what are you currently doing right now? What is your role? What is your job? And all that fun stuff.
My full name is Jerry Lown Jr. I go by JR because Junior sounds like something from Hee Haw. And currently, right now, I'm really nervous sitting in this chair. I am blessed to be a part of a men's ministry here, a nonprofit company here in Cedar Rapids called Hope CDA. I was a past participant. Graduated, and now I'm in administration. I'm more directly involved in the process. The direction that God is leading me is guiding these gentlemen into a solution. Like me, many of them were troubled by addiction or incarceration, and we all deserve second chances, and part of that is helping show them the direction where them chances are available.
Awesome. So that's where we are today. So let's backtrack, okay? So tell me a little bit about obviously you were, like you said, you were a participant in Hope CDA, which means there's somewhere in your life you got off track somewhere, obviously, like we all do. But let's start back to early years of your life. Of when do you feel like, hey, looking back now, I can see this is where maybe I started heading down the wrong path. When do you think that happened, and how did that start?
That's a good question. I grew up in a family that was, we weren't bad off. We were a loving family, but we didn't go to church. I knew about God, but I didn't know that was a solution to life, and gave me a direction. So everything was, I was taught that we handle things on our own, and I would say I always felt like I never fit in anywhere. I was always uncomfortable around other kids, sometimes around the family. My life started turning towards fitting in with substances. Probably, I was really young, about 10, 11 years old. Really active in it when I was 13. Hanging out with wrong crowds, right, pretty much about that same age. 15, started getting in trouble, and 17, I went to prison for the first time.
Wow. Yeah. So you're saying, this whole attraction to substance abuse and things like that, it wasn't necessarily, hey, it was the drugs you were after to start with. It was, this is a group that's going to accept me, and so I can just.
Right. Yeah. There was. It seemed that with alcohol and drugs, everybody accepted me because I usually had what they wanted, or they had what I wanted, and it was a kind of a common thing at that time. I grew up in most of my life, my younger years. I was born in 1968, so through the 70s, that was a pretty common thing.
Yeah.
We used to, the high school I went to here in Cedar Rapids, there was a smoking section outside. So, and hacky sack and all sorts of other things. And so that's where I could fit in. And the goofier I got, or intoxicated I got, both sometimes, the more people laughed, the more I would fit in, more I felt like I'd fit in. And then in the years of incarceration, when I first started getting in trouble, I found other people that really didn't care who I was, and I found a new way to fit in.
Yeah. So, in your experience, do you feel like a lot of those guys, even now that as you work with Hope CDA and your experience, in prison and that sort of thing, do you feel like that's what really, for a lot of other people, would have the same story? Hey, I was just looking for a place to fit in. I was looking for kind of my family kind of thing. Would you say that's?
Oh, most definitely. The majority of the fellows coming into the program, and even in the recovery program I'm currently involved with, 12-step program, a lot of people are on the fence with God or believing in something that's unseen, and that's a huge part of my story. And everything that I battled, others have battled too. So our stories align in many ways. Maybe different people, different crimes or different drugs or substances, but the solution is all coming around to be the same.
Yeah. Which, as JR was sharing his story with me on Wednesday, sitting in Applebee's, which I wish you could have seen us at Applebee's. It was hilarious because JR skies over me, right? Tall dude. The booth we were at, I don't know what was wrong with his side, but he looked like he was at the kids' table, and you could only see his head pretty much. It was awesome. I felt tall for a while. But as you were sharing that story, I was thinking, oh man, as I was thinking about what the church is supposed to be, a place where people can find a place to fit in, a place where people can go, you know what? They're not judging me. They don't care what I look like, dress like. They don't care where I've been, what I've done. They're going to care for me. They're going to love me. They're going to accept me. Man, we need to be more and more like that, because that's what, really, I think everyone's looking for. And unfortunately, that takes some people down a path that, how long did it take? At what point, let me ask it this way. At what point were you able to stop and go, wow, this is not the life I want to be living?
After about 28 years in prison.
Yeah.
I've been incarcerated numerous times. And the grand total is about 28 years. 2.5 years ago, I was leading the same path. The first time it got in my head was probably 7 years ago. I think it was about 5 years ago, actually, I started coming here to Hillside. Mm-hmm. I'd been church surfing, if you want to call it that, looking for home, looking for peace, looking for people that looked at the similarities, not the differences. Because as many of you might know, that I had a lot longer hair and a lot longer beard a long time ago. So when I come through the doors, there was a whole lot different cover on the book.
Yeah.
I always searched for somebody or somewhere or something that looked past that cover and seen the inside, the true me. Part of that was because I didn't know who I really was. Mm. And I was hoping that somebody pointed out, hey, this is who you are. And 2.5 years ago, I was once again in trouble and incarcerated in jail. And I was at that moment. I was broken. I'd love to say I was blessed with that gift of desperation, and I dropped to my knees, and I was all in for a solution, and I gave myself to Christ. And it was really weird because everything that I was looking from other people to show me direction seemed to just start happening. I'm not going to say instantly, but some prayers were answered that day within a matter of hours. I was given a chance to go to treatment. and my application for Hope CDA was accepted. So direction was given,
Yeah.
and I could see it. So, and uh, that's where I knew that second chances were real, and maybe for people like me, 10th or 12th chances. I'm not a bad person. I just made bad choices,
Yeah.
and God's seen that, and that's why I'm sitting right here now, scared,
Did-
nervous.
Yeah, I remember the first day I met you. We were out in the lobby, and you walked in, and I was newer to Hillside, so I didn't know who all was regular Hillside and who wasn't, and I just walked up and said, "Hey, I'm Dave, and I'm Jr." And so that was almost 3 years ago. So I've really kind of known kind of the other side of JR, but I remember, yeah, the long hair and the long beard. And I remember the first Sunday I saw you when you walked in after you cut your hair. I'm like, did he join the military? What's going on? And but yeah, so my experience, I've had the privilege of kind of seeing the other side of the coin, of seeing you taking those next spiritual steps of, from, okay, God, this is it. I'm turning my life over to you, to continuing to grow. So what would you say has helped you continue to grow in that relationship with God? Because, sometimes, unfortunately, churches, we can sometimes be really good at helping people cross that line of faith and then, leave them out in the desert to find their own way. How have you managed to kind of continue to grow in that faith? What things are you a part of that helps out with that?
A lot of that is the community here at Hillside. And questions. I'm always questioning and seeking answers. Like my recovery, I try not to let my faith grow stale, because then that's when I start wandering back to my will. Keeping God number one in my life, and that's being active with Bible studies, small groups, when I can, and just doing what I don't normally do. And of course, all you there, everybody here has been more than friendly, I guess, accepting and patient in sometimes.
Yeah,
Discovering is really hard sometimes when you don't know the direction.
yeah. I want to step back a little bit. That whole questioning. I love that, right? Because sometimes I feel like if someone crosses that line of faith and says, "Hey, I want to turn my life over to Christ," and they have questions, they can be intimidated, like, "Oh, I should know the answer, so I feel stupid if I ask," or they're like, "Oh, I shouldn't have doubts. I shouldn't have questions," right? It should be just like, "Oh, I became a Christian, now I know everything, and I question nothing." But I love the fact that you're like, "No, I ask questions. I keep discovering. You're hungry. You're wanting more and more." I'll tell you what. I remember also, we were getting rid of the books in the library, and you're just like, "Hang on," and you're like loading up with books. And so apparently you're an avid reader. You love to read and catch up with stuff like that too. So here, what connections do you have with Hillside besides Sunday morning, the Sunday morning service?
I'm part of the Berean Bible study downstairs in the basement. As much as I can, we go to that before service every Sunday, and then you might have seen me out there opening doors for you. And then I try to be a part of it as much as I can, as my schedule allows. And I think I signed up for maintenance. Somebody's probably like, "You haven't showed up yet."
Well, there you go.
It's being involved. Because when I was in active addiction and that other life, I was really, really involved. And now that I'm not part of that life anymore, it creates a vacuum. Mm-hmm. And I've got to fill it with as much God and involvement in other areas as I can.
Wow.
Otherwise, I'll get stagnant. I'll start taking my will back. So.
Yeah, I think that's super wise, JR, that whole, okay, there's that area of my life that I don't want to participate anymore. But understanding that that creates a void. And if you don't fill it with something else, it's easy to go back to the routine, right? Back to that rut. And so, yeah, that's awesome. Now, also, so that 12-step program that you're a part of meets here. And just, I mean, you don't have to touch on it a whole lot, but how is that going? And, yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
It's going good. Numbers fluctuate here and there. You know, summertime people get busy, want to go camping, vacations, and all that. But it's really good, and that's a part of. That's another part for me to find the similarities with others and give direction. I'm not only a sponsee, but I sponsor gentlemen too in the 12 steps and solution and having God involved in that. And we have fun downstairs too. We eat. The Hillside's been generous to provide snacks and kitchen, and yeah, it's been great. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love, man. Your story is like, man. It would be great to be able to clone you. You know, to go from okay. So seriously, you're like, no, you don't want that, right? And part of it is your humility of just saying, hey, I realize where I came from. I realized I still have room to grow. And the scary thing is there's so many people who have grown up in the church that don't have that, well, I wasn't that bad, so I haven't had to grow that much. And it's like, no, we all were in the same boat you were. Yeah, you were at a little different path or whatever, but we all needed God just as much as you needed God. It's not like you needed God more. We all, as, you know, if you're not right with God, you're not right with God. And so your humility of just knowing that and just saying, okay, I want to continue to grow. And you don't sit back and just wait. Okay, somebody needs to come along and feed me. You're like, okay, I need something. I need to go out and find it. And then on top of that, you're turning around and saying, okay, now how can I help others? Because you have a heart. You're like, oh, man, I know where you've been. And, man, it is so much better on this side, and I just want to help you get there and direct you. We didn't discuss this before, but so at Hope CDA, I know you're a popular guy. I know the organization really appreciates having you there and working. So, I mean, what is a new guy coming in, or some of the newer guys, what is their attitude towards you? How do you interact with them? What's that look like?
Some days better than others. I think that there's, just like in what we've been talking about, the relativity, the gentleman coming in, the gentleman that I deal with can relate more with me because I've been down that road. And God has brought me through that. And I think that's huge. Lead by example, I guess. I love the continuing challenge. And that's been a key to my recovery and to my faith today, is to continually challenge myself. And I try to instill that with the others. You know, don't just wait for it to happen. Pursue it. Look for that change. Go after what you seek. You know, have that motivation, and you know, that challenge is where it is. I wouldn't be sitting in this chair if I didn't accept a challenge or the position at Hope CDA. I always thought that I would just be a truck driver or a welder or whatever, and I used to let that define who I am. And then this position came open, and I was like, oh, what the heck, you know, I'll apply. And when I was given that chance, yeah, now I got an office. It's really weird. I still don't know what to hang on my wall.
Well, you should step in my office. I have the same problem, but
but it's like accepting the challenge and letting God guide me. That's allowing this change, this new JR set here, and be able to talk, and to be able to hopefully let that that spark, that change, that the shine, the light, or whatever you want to label it, affects somebody else. Because my story used to be shameful, and I used to hide it. And today it's power. And I know I didn't get into a lot of the torrid details.
Yeah.
That's not my point today. My point today is how God has worked in my life and how Jesus has saved me.
Yeah, that's so awesome. That's awesome. So it wasn't that long ago that I was really nervous in an interaction I was going to have with you. You probably don't know this, but it was the day of your baptism. Because, dude, you're a big guy. And I'm thinking, I hope I don't drop him. But so tell me, how did you get to the point, though, to say, you know what, I want to be baptized. This is something I want to do. How did you get there?
I felt comfortable here. Hillside was already home in my heart. And the next step for me was, it wasn't a public declaration. For me, that was a contract between me and God. When I went down, I literally came out determined never to look back.
That's
I would
awesome.
use what I had in the back from behind, but I was not going to look back. I wasn't going to go back. So it was like that was a binding contract.
Yeah,
I was really nervous that day that you were going to drop me too.
Well, and it was awesome because I swear that the church was tipping a little bit that day because of all the people that you brought from Hope CDA that came to support you. That was so cool. And I think that speaks a lot of the organization itself. But I think it speaks a lot of just how much God has impacted other people through you. That you're a very relational guy. I don't know if you realize this about yourself or not, but you're really easy to talk to, and you can tell you actually care about the people you're talking to. You're not, looking for the next person or things like that. And so I just really feel like you've had a tremendous impact here, and I'm glad that Hillside was a place that you could call your church home. We say, hey, try us out for 3 weeks, and we think you will, but I'm so glad that you found this as a place you can call your church home. And I'm so happy to be able to say that Hillside was a place that is welcoming, that is saying, we love people, and it doesn't matter. We just want everyone to come in, and we want to point them to God. And so, so now here you are. You're Hope CDA. You're on staff. I mean, can you imagine, go back even 10 years ago of just, can you imagine going back to that guy and saying, hey, guess what? In 10 years, let me tell you where you're going to be. I mean, he would have probably thought you were crazy. And
most definitely, I would have never envisioned this. Never. I didn't know. I just didn't know. I often say that I wish I could just take a little piece of this that God has blessed me with and give it to everybody. Because 10 years ago, I would have just laughed at who I am today, and thought I was just, I guess faking it till I make it type thing. But that softening of my heart right here is that little piece that I would love to just hand out, because it's been instrumental. It's been huge.
Yeah. So let's take that life lesson. How many times do we interact with people, folks, and we think, oh, they hate the church, they're just mocking us, they have no respect. And so we can build a wall, and we think I can't believe them, and we just want to keep them at arm's length. And like you're saying, it's just, I didn't know. If I would have known, right? And so these are people who they may seem very anti-church, anti-God, but the fact is, it's just, in the true definition of the word, they're just ignorant in what a relationship with God is really like and about. And so that really kind of cuts to me of, man, I need to watch my heart in my interactions with people, and not just, oh, well, obviously you don't want to have anything to do with church, so, I'm going to just move on, instead of, you know what? No, my heart breaks for you because you just don't know. And now, for me, no pressure, JR, but for me now, as I look at people, I go, you're a potential JR. You're a potential JR. You're a potential JR. Because I have heard your story, just the life transformation that God has done in your life. And, to see the joy and, hard worker still. I mean, this guy gets up every morning at 4 o'clock to work out. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to roll over and go back to sleep. But, I love your heart. I love what God has done through you. And I love just how you are still continuing to say, okay, I want, like you say, I just want to share this. I just want to share this. I don't want to cover the light. As you said, you are the salt and you're the light. And I love that you're just like, let me shine. Like, let me just cast this light to as many people as I possibly can. And so Hope CDA Gala is October 24th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. October 24th.
All right, so October 24th is the Hope CDA Gala. This is a fundraiser, obviously, for them, and wanting to just raise support so that they can continue to minister to guys and have more and more stories like yours. And really, what an awesome opportunity and ministry that we have here in Cedar Rapids. I would love to say that there's programs like that everywhere, but there just aren't. And so we're actually going to have a table for the gala, hillside table. So there's 10 spots available for that table. So I've already taken one of those seats. So we're down to single digits now. We're down to 9. So if you want to be a part of that and you want to come and just hear more of what Hope CDA does and that sort of thing, would love to have you join us. We talked about, all right, hey, if we fill that table and we need another one, awesome. We'll get another table. But contact me. Let me know if you would love to be a part of that. And we can discuss that. So just to close, what would be, like, if you could just say one final statement or one final comment to the congregation here at Hillside, what would that be? I know I just put a ton of pressure on you. So
Thank you, Dave.
JR will never do an interview with me again.
Never give up hope, and don't ever quit challenging yourself. Because if I would have never took that chance and having faith in what God wants me to do, I wouldn't be the guy I am right now, or a part of the ministry that I am. And just the fact that I love everybody for who they are, and I love myself more importantly today.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Let's give thanks to JR. And JR, before you step down, I want to pray for you. And so, God, I just thank you for JR, and I love your story that you've written through him. And God, I just pray that you would continue to bless him. God, continue to bless his efforts, continue to guide and direct him. God, lead him down the path that you want him to go. God, just allow whenever he speaks to people for there to be your power in his words, God. And we just pray that he would just continue to grow in his relationship with you and his love for you. And God, we just thank you for what you've done. And God, help us. God, help us as a church to desire, to crave, to long for more stories like this, and therefore have our hearts break for people who are lost, and to reach out and to see our community and our city full of people not anti-God or anti-church, but God, of a community of people who just don't know, and allow us the opportunity. Give us the desire like JR has to just share the light with them so that we can just let them know, that they could see, that they could realize, that they could have that moment where they're like, I get it now. And God, again, we just, for all the different aspects of ministry, for every person that JR ministers to through Hope CDA, through the 12-step program, everyone he comes in contact with, God, we just pray that your light would shine so brightly through him that, God, they don't see JR, but they just see you. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you very much, JR. So the reason I wanted to do this interview was one, I love JR's story. I love just the transformation that you can just see and hear his passion. But I also wanted this maybe, to be that spark that starts something in each of our hearts that says, I want to see more of that, God. God, give me a heart that breaks for our community. Give me a heart that breaks for my neighbors. Give me a heart that breaks for my coworkers. And help me to see them as people who simply need you. And so that we can see more and more stories of how God has transformed people's lives. And so again, JR, thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable like that. That was awesome.